Good morning and welcome to my November webinar from Pearl Planning, You've Inherited, Now What? I'm Melissa Joy. I'm founder and president of Pearl Planning, and I'm joining you today for a presentation where we will cover some important things you need to remember if you're in the circumstance where you've inherited money from family members or friends. So as I mentioned, I'm Melissa Joy. We have some important disclaimers here as well, and really want you to understand as we talk together today that this information is generic and general, and I'm always happy to work with you for personal information that might pertain to your personal circumstances. So today we're going to cover, what could be in an inheritance, action steps to take when you've received money, and resources that will help you. So a famous quote that's attributed to Rockefeller is shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. And really this is a quote that talks about transfers of wealth. An inheritance is a transfer of wealth that goes from one generation to another when someone passes away. So oftentimes money will, if someone is married, money will stay from spouse to spouse, but eventually when the second owner passes away, or if a person is single, there will be bequests that go to different individuals. An inheritance can be something that is a physical asset, a vehicle, a house, a treasured object. It could also be a financial account, which is something that we deal with here. And it's interesting, I immediately am talking about inheritance and also sharing quotes with you because inheritances can be easily lost in generational transfer. And that's what this quote is referring to, that oftentimes across generations, regardless of society, the first generation may gather and earn wealth. Second generation can coast and maintain that wealth, but by the third generation, there are neither the skills nor the capacity to add to wealth. So oftentimes it's a round trip, an elevator from the bottom floor to the top floor with the first generation, maintaining or sliding a little bit with second generation, and back down to that basement level with the third generation. And so part of what I'm talking to you today about is trying to ensure that you have the appropriate strategies in order to have a good foundation for your decisions with an inheritance so that you don't fulfill that proverb. And it's interesting, that proverb has different versions for different parts of the world. So in Asia, it's attributed as a rice paddy to rice paddy in 3 generations. So this is a universal phenomena that it's difficult to maintain wealth over time. So what are some strategies that can help you as you look to tackle an inheritance? First, I would just mention that there's so much that's emotional tied to an inheritance often. You're receiving money from someone that's very close to you, or assets. And so, I would just acknowledge that you need to both handle the emotional side of things as well as the financial side of things. And so often people just think, they think in terms of the numbers first, and they kind of act to address their emotions with moving their financial instruments. And I would encourage everyone to consider that your emotions need to be handled. And so here are some strategies that both help you to be organized, but also handle those emotions. First, if you have a sizable inheritance, you should determine who's on your team. That could be trusted friends or family, a financial planner, a tax professional like a CPA, or an attorney. A lot of people, when there's a time of loss or transition, a lot of people want to help. And certainly that's first, a wonderful offer, but also, not everyone is qualified. You don't need the whole world on your team. Everyone has great advice. And when you can decide who really is in your inner circle, this gives you an added opportunity of setting boundaries with those that really want to help, but you may not need their help. Also, I think a healthy combination of patience and prioritizing is really critical. So if there were a huge change of an estate, first, many people, it's kind of like a lottery win. I know that the emotions and the feelings are not. But many people immediately are saying, if I got a pool of money unexpectedly, here are all the things that I would do. And they just start attributing tons of expenditures. And the reality is this can lead to that behavior that really loses the wealth. In fact, a Money Watch report indicated that after 2 years of receiving a significant inheritance, 1/3 of the people that receive those funds have negative savings rates. And that's all due to impulsive actions and lack of a game plan, as well as just personal decisions. So what I tell people they should do, they may have a jumble of thoughts, and often when I have a first meeting, I ask them to write down, what are your concerns? But then we'll quickly start prioritizing into a now list, a soon list, and a later list. So then you can make a big decision, let's say it's about a piece of property, that you're not really prepared to make in the immediate, weeks and months after the loss of someone. So we might put that on the soon or the later list. But on the now list would be updating estate planning documents, getting things retitled into the right account, etc. So everybody's list is a little bit different, and I listen and reflect to hear what people really think are important to them. But then we go and develop that now, soon, and later list, and that becomes a working list that can be utilized throughout the process of kind of getting to your next stage. And when you have a transition event like an inheritance or the loss of someone important to you, it takes not weeks or months, but years oftentimes to feel, comfortable in the new stage. So with patience and this now, soon, and later list, we can cover that time in an effective manner. Also, you may want a wish list or a dream list of things that you really want, a place where you can dream or wish or brainstorm. So you can start to develop that list, but I love the idea of separating that list from actions, at least in the beginning. So then you have time to change over time. I can't tell you how often in the case of either an inheritance or sudden influx of wealth that people immediately say, nothing's going to change, no big deal. And then you start to see the actions, big real estate purchases or purchases of properties. So take it easy, slow down, and have that dream list, but make sure it's separate from your action list. You can always move something from the dream list to the action list, but give yourself a chance to have things evolve over time, and give yourself a chance to reorganize and understand all of your financial planning and personal circumstances. So what are some potential uses of financial inheritance that I see quite often? Of course, again, this is like a general list, and your circumstances may be different. But, I love thinking about what are the weaknesses in your financial condition or financial plan if you have one. Oftentimes people won't have a financial plan yet. They don't understand the components of a financial plan, which don't just include investments. A financial plan can be your financial goals. What is your cash flow? How do you manage debt? How are you doing for retirement? If you have kids, how is their education savings going? A review of insurance, a review of your estate planning. There's a lot of working parts to an effective financial plan. And you may know, they may come through you as an anxiety or an insufficiency, but for many people, regardless of their financial circumstances, there are weaknesses that could be addressed when you have a windfall or inheritance. So getting emergency reserves on hand so that you don't always have to go toward borrowing to get new things, paying off and reorganizing your debt, boosting retirement savings, and possibly investing. These are just a few, but there are several potential uses for inheritance. I love the idea of honoring a legacy, and recently I was talking to a friend who wanted to honor her mother and created a scholarship that was related to her high school where her mother had taught. Those are the types of legacy instruments that can come with an inheritance that can be really powerful and make the person receive the money feel better about kind of the what's being passed along. It really speaks to future generations. I think it's an antidote to that shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve in 3 generations. So that I think that's wonderful. But that, of course, would be something that I would put on the soon or later list, not the now list. So you need some time to work things out and understand what's right. It wouldn't happen within weeks. And I think that's what a lot of people do. They kind of start and just, there's a flurry of activity and I want to do this, I want to do that. And I get that. Part of my goal, though, is to honor that desire for action and also, you know, have people take some deep breaths and kind of put the oxygen mask on first and take care of some basics and then get to the legacy side of things. And don't confuse assets with legacy. I have found that some people inherit, you know, maybe it's an individual stock, what grandma really, you know, made her money on, how she paid for retirement off of the dividends. But then that can be earmarked where there's no action available for the person who receives those funds, because it really becomes, you know, kind of just like a knick-knack that's really special to the family. It becomes nostalgic and something that they need to honor. And I really love the idea of separating legacy and purpose from an individual asset. And then that allows those financial assets that you've received to integrate into your life and your financial plan. In thinking about this, if you're watching this presentation and you're thinking about how you want to structure an inheritance, you're living but thinking about your estate plan, I love the idea of having, you know, a contemporary letter that talks to the person who will be receiving some of your wealth about what is important to you, whether you want them to know that they're preparing for a legacy, know that they're helping out your grandkids, things like that. So a conversation that kind of gives them permission to integrate these funds into important things in their lives. Now, if you have someone who doesn't handle money well, you can do other things you can kind of put in information that will help to speed bumps, so to speak, things that will help slow them down from spending through all of the money. But a personal note that's different than a trust or a will or a legal document, I think is a great tool. So what happens when you inherit physical assets? It could be a vehicle, it could be a piece of real estate. Well, in this case, I want you to determine the cost of holding something like that and your desire to hold something like that. And how does that integrate within your financial plan? Get organized. So some things you may want to keep and other things you may want to let go of. There's always professionals that can help you out if you need to do an estate sale or something like that. And really, again, you need a financial plan so you can incorporate these new things into your financial plan. So it's very helpful to have a working, you know, kind of sense of where you're at, what you need, and then the new things can really come to you. So I've intentionally kept this presentation brief. I want it to be evergreen and available for the moment in time where we can't predict where you are dealing with the challenges of an inheritance. But I do have 3 offers that I think would be useful for you in kind of keeping on track if you're listening to this today. First, I have a newsletter from Pearl Planning. You can get it if you just go to pearlplan.com and go to the newsletter section. And we keep you apprised of blogs, events, educational information. And I think this would be helpful for you to stay in touch with different pieces of information that we have available for you. Second, if you are dealing with the challenges of an inheritance, I work with clients across the country and especially in Southeast Michigan, and I'm happy to help you. So just reach out and contact me. My email is melissa@pearlplan.com. An initial meeting has no cost, and we can just chat about your needs and how it might work together, or just I can give you some resources that will help you along the way. And I have 3 guides available if you email me and ask for them. One of them is the issues to consider if you have a parent that passes away, also issues to consider if your spouse passes away, and then considerations when you close an estate for someone who has died. So each of those free guides is free, and you just need to send me an email and I'll be happy to send it back to you. Here is our contact information. Don't hesitate to reach out to me at the office at 734-274-6744. You can peruse our website and also email me anytime at melissa@pearlplan.com. We have these webinars once a month, and don't hesitate to reach out if you want to be on our mailing list so that you know when they're happening. And again, if you have any questions about inheritance, I'm happy to be here to help. Thank you.